Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us here today on TIP International Radio, where we showcase prestigious top professionals from all industries all over the globe to share their experience and stories of success. I'm your host, Leah Masten, and of course, I must introduce my beautiful co-host who has joined the TIP International Radio podcast full-time. We are so honored and excited to have her as a host of the show. Originally from Namibia, she was crowned Miss Universe in 1992. Please welcome Michelle McLean.
Hi there, Leah. It's always such a pleasure to be on the show and hear from our exciting guests. This is really one of those days where, I heard all about you, Fiona. Now we have to talk about this amazing woman, a very special guest joining us today all the way from Melbourne, Australia. She is an educational consultant for the Learning Development and Standards Division of the People Development Command Section of the Victoria Police. Now that is a mouthful, but I'm sure your work is harder than my work trying to actually say it. With having 3 decades, my goodness me, of professional experience in education, this amazing woman, Fiona, has certainly proven herself as a dynamic, results-driven leader who has mastered the art of training and assessing programs for police recruits, detectives, crime scene officers, and prosecutors. She is an honored member of the International Association of Top Professionals. Everyone, please welcome on the show today, once again, here is Fiona Davis. Hi, Fiona.
Hi. Hey, normally when you read out, all our, those People Development Command and Quality Education Division, we sort of put it in with acronyms or abbreviations, so you end up sort of saying it far quicker, and most people know what you're talking about, but for the first time people will go, oh, this sounds a bit like alphabet soup. What is all this?
Well, that is the reason why I need to ask that question, because for those of us laymen who don't know all about this, you started off as a primary school teacher. How on earth did you end up in the Australian Army, and then you started at the Victoria Police? My goodness, you're a primary school teacher.
Well, yes. Well, really, I suppose after being teaching for about 10 years, I sort of thought, well, there must be something better to do, something a bit different. And so I sort of went into the recruiting office primarily to join more the Army Reserve than the Army. And suddenly, there was the paperwork in front of me, and the next minute I was in the Army, sort of heading off to do, some basic training, and that was it. I think it was a good opportunity to still be teaching, because I was actually teaching soldiers as part of their promotion courses. So, instead of teaching, primary school sort of under 10-year-olds, I was teaching, late teenagers, early 20s, some up into late 20s. But, in some ways there are times when it didn't feel too much different to teaching primary school. But I think having a, that background made teaching easier, because if there was an issue, I could probably, relate to it better. I could try and get, solve their problems better. And then I went into a different area of instructional design, where I was actually designing and developing the training programs for people. So I sort of stepped back from teaching and went more into the developing side. And from there, my last couple of years in the Army were more, I suppose you could call it editor-in-chief or of Army's training publications, where I had a small team of editors and graphic artists, and we actually wrote Army's training publications. So it still was all education focused, but I kept, changing directions every few years, just to, I suppose, well, with the Army, they make you change direction, but it was really good. And then it was about back in 2010, my contract with the Army was coming up for renewal, and I went, maybe I should get out so I can still be employable, because getting to a certain age, it's harder to get jobs later in life. And so I went, well, maybe I could still be teaching and go somewhere else differently. And then I think there I was lucky to fill out this advertisement with Victoria Police and get the job. And I'm back still doing a little bit of teaching, but mostly again it's instructional design with their programs. As you said, I'm working with detectives, crime scene officers, and prosecutors. So, you know, the best thing is, as I sort of jokingly say to people, well, you know, if I'm going to go and kill somebody, I know how to do it to make sure I don't get caught, because I've been working with detectives to know what evidence not to leave behind. Working with crime scene officers, I certainly know what I shouldn't be doing, and you know, and they've given me ideas on how to bury a body. And with prosecutors, well, I've been working with them to make sure that, you know, if I do get caught, what not to say. So I'm pretty well, you know, pretty happy with you know, what I need with what I've been doing.
Dialed there. Fiona, since you were last on the show, I mean, with COVID in Australia, you've definitely experienced so much, and I think you're in a lockdown right now. How has it affected your job with what you're doing?
Well, as you said, we're in lockdown number 6. We had 3 last year, and we're now in lockdown 6, which was we're, I think, 6 weeks into a 1-week lockdown. And at the moment, we've got no date as to when our lockdown will be finishing, and that includes a nightly curfew.
What does that entail, Fiona? Nightly curfews, what does that entail?
Nightly curfew is from 9 p.m. till 5 a.m. That's it. No one's out. Except, you know, if you're sort of like on night shift or whatever. The rest of it, you're all, you know, curfew, you're inside. And if you're caught outside, you can, you know, get a fine. So, you know, I walk down to the end of I don't walk down, I sort of stand outside my gate and look down to the end of the street, or either that or I, you know, leopard crawl down the street to see the end. But it's deserted. There are no trains, no trams, no cars. It's eerie. And we had this a bit last year, but, you know, it's hard. And I think, you know, until we're all 70% double, you know, full vaccination, we've been told we won't be coming out of lockdown. So
well, we can certainly, we can certainly hope that around the world that this COVID, you know, this restrictions lift, because in so many countries they have, you know, these kind of restrictions just you know, create a lot of uneasiness and depression, and you know, so there's a lot to talk about. But I mean, in your industry, I'm sure you've seen, you know, a lot of that even without COVID. What advice would you give to anybody wanting to join your industry? Because I'm sure it's created quite a situation now with COVID.
It has. I suppose for me, I mean, I'm working from home 2 days a week. Obviously, one of them is today. That's why we're able to be here. I go into the office 2 other days, and just to change over with one of the other staff there. So we've always got somebody in the office full time. And out at the academy, they're still doing training. What they've done is they've segregated the training so that because it's on a fairly big campus, there's lots of buildings. So they've managed to segregate all the training so that people don't mix. And that's the rule. You know, here's your building, this is it. You're not going to be able to travel too far out of it, which is a good thing, because it's meant that, unlike last year where they shut down all training other than recruits, this year they've risk managed it to the point where they can, you know, you can still come and do training. Really, for me, I do lots of meetings by teams, but I do miss the face-to-face connection, you know, the social side of it, just going in and having a bit of a chat with someone, walking past their office and sticking your head in the door and you know, saying hello. It's that, I think, is what, from speaking to a lot of people, that's what people are missing. That, you know, quite a few people are happy to work from home. They don't have, you know, while I might be dressed up at the top, who knows what I'm wearing underneath. And a lot of people have that, you know, they even, you know, they work in their jammies or tracky dacks or whatever. But I still like going into the office, just, I suppose, to get back into some nice clothes, and talk to people. Talking on a meeting or in Zoom is fine, but it's not the same. You don't actually get the connection with someone. You don't really see what, how your interaction is working with them. But
Yeah.
It's what it is. We just have to live with this, and I don't think it's going away. But I know it is causing lots of, I suppose, mental health issues for people, and there are times when I'm sure we all, me included, so I think, when can we get back to something, something nearing normal?
Definitely. Fiona, throughout your illustrious career, you have won numerous awards, honors, and featured in magazines worldwide. You received the Australian Army Active Service Medal and the Australian Army Long Service Medal. This past year, you were selected as Female Visionary of the Year, received the International Hero Award, were on the famous Reuters building in Times Square, and selected to be featured in IAOTP's Top 50 Fearless Leaders book. You were honored at IAOTP's annual awards gala at the Bellagio Hotel and received the Educational Consultant of the Decade Award, and we're on the front cover of Tip magazine. Congratulations. That's all very incredible. With all of that, what would you say has been the highlight of your career or the most memorable experience that you've had to date?
I suppose in a way, well, listening to all of that, it's someone could say, golly, this woman's, done a lot. And I suppose when you look at it, in over, I suppose, 30 odd years of education, I've done a fair bit, and, all these awards are very, very humbling, and I'm very proud to receive them. And, some of them are not, some of them are out of their box, but others are, I haven't really got anywhere to display them. And, but I suppose some of the highlights have been last year during a really bad COVID here in Melbourne. I went back into the Army and put on my uniform after quite a few years. Fortunately, it's still fitted, but really joined our COVID task force, and I suppose, worked in our headquarters for people, helping us in our state with during our COVID crisis. And I think that was a great experience, because again, I went back and worked with a great team of people, helping out our state. And I don't know how much the rest of the world heard about what we were experiencing last year, but in a way, it's nothing different to what New South Wales is going through this year. Then, as you know, I back in about 2003, I was that was when I got deployed to East Timor, and that's when I a lot of us got our service medals. But I think one of the I suppose highlights is, or challenges I've had this year is managing my Army Reserve unit by distance. My boss said the other day that my unit has now been closed for over 200 days. And, no one really knows then when we're actually going to be meeting. And I think one of the challenges and highlights is being able to keep in touch with all my staff. We do Zoom meetings. I email them. I keep talking to them. And it's a challenge because, again, trying to keep their morale up. They're all sort of sitting at home like we all are, but still sort of keeping in touch with them, making sure that they're fine. It's so I suppose that one of the highlights and challenges is trying to keep them motivated to want to come back. And I jokingly said to them in our last Zoom meeting, I'll probably see you at our Christmas lunch, and that's more than likely, looking at now, is true. And you wouldn't think it, here we are in towards near the end of September, but with Christmas not 3 months away, that could be about when we see them. But actually,
So
I think,
Fiona, talking about that, sorry to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
I'm so inquisitive about this. As a woman, what are the challenges in the military, in the army, as a career?
I suppose it's not very much different to even being in the police. The challenges, I suppose, are making sure that you just can do your job. I mean, obviously, there's been a big push, for gender equality, and really, in a way, the military and Victoria Police are probably not much different to any other organisation. They don't have a large proportion of women, and one of the challenges is trying to get more women into the job, and that's a challenge, because you can't force people to join. It's like any industry that people will do what they want to do, but those who are there, it's just do your job, and show that while you might not have the same strength, muscle strength or whatever to do the job, you can still do it, and there are ways around it. It's do your job, be professional, and say, well, look, I can do this. And a lot of the time, early in my career, I think a lot of it was proving that I could do the job, because there was, some kind of gender discrimination, even though it wasn't, you don't talk about it, you don't mention it. But I always found that if I could be professional and do my job, then that often overcame it. And it's the same, even in policing. Do your job. Show that you can do your job. Be a team player, and just say, and that often gets around it. I think getting back, Michelle, to one of your questions, or was it Leah earlier on? I can't remember. You were talking about advice I would give, to people who either wanted to join any organisation, whether it be the army or the defence force, or even the police. It's I remember years when I first joined, and I was one of these very junior lieutenants. A very old, experienced sergeant said to me, "Look, listen, and learn." And when you think about it, that's pretty good advice. Especially if you're in a new job. The last thing you want to do, I know in a new job you go in there full of energy and excitement, and I can rule the world. I can change the world. But the last thing you want to do is fall over and look like an idiot, because then you lose a lot of credibility. And I think that advice of look, listen, and learn is pretty much what I've tried to follow. I think it's also important, especially if you're starting out anywhere, and I've actually done it a few times to people, is to find a good coach or a mentor, and that person is where you can look up to them, ask advice, and that person can help develop your skills and knowledge. And in our workplace at Victoria Police, I've been mentoring a junior colleague, giving her upskilling her in some of the areas, and in a way that's keeping my sort of fingers in the pie of teaching. But I also think in any new job, and we're always hard to do it, is don't be afraid to ask questions. We often don't want to ask a question because we don't want to look a bit foolish. Everyone thinks we ought to know everything. But I think if you ask a question, admit I don't know how to do something, then again it's a way to learn, and that's a challenge. I mean, none of us like to say that we can't do something and to ask a question, but I think if you can and you go, look, I just don't know, I need a hand, or I need some help, people will do it. But as I think I said earlier, join a team. Being part of a team is, and wanting to be part of that team is important. As I think my other half has said to me, there's a train. You either need to be the driver or a passenger, or you're left on the station. Pick one. But the worst part of it is, don't be that person left on the station. Be either on the train or the driver.
That's great advice indeed.
Oh, look, it's great advice.
Brilliant.
Now all I have to do is make sure I follow it all the time. That's not always easy.
Well, Fiona, thank you so much for sending us photos of your jewelry. I know that's one of the passions that you have. They were absolutely beautiful.
Oh, thank you. It was interesting just getting out a few pieces, because I was able to look at them and go, wow, I haven't seen some of these for a while. And it was good. Yeah.
Yeah, your beadwork's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Well, sorry?
What an amazing eclectic talent you have, from being in the military and the police to jewelry. My gosh, jewelry design.
Well, it's a way of relaxing. You know, as you know, I suppose I don't have too many hobbies. You know, one of my hobbies, I suppose, is jewelry making. It's something I do to relax, and it keeps, well, I suppose it keeps the mind active, because, you know, looking at a pattern and trying to work it out, and creating it and then seeing what you've done at the end is great. You know, sometimes it works out. Sometimes, like the other day, I made something, I looked at it and I went, ugh. You know, it just didn't work. You know, the colors didn't do it, and you know, I got out the scissors and completely cut it up, and then looked at it and remade it in different colors, and that was it. It was like, wow, you know, and that's sometimes the worst part of chopping it up, or throwing it out. But then that's where you learn. And you know, but I do love making my jewelry. It's the seed beading is really great. I think that's my passion, followed by my chainmail that I do. That's just as challenging. But as you can see, I've sort of gone into a little bit of resin and polymer clay, which is, you know, just as rewarding. But you know, I've got to do something with our lockdown, because we can't go anywhere for our weekends. It's just staying at home, and you know, one of my other passions of field hockey. I think they've cancelled the season, and I think we've played 7 games of field hockey in the 4 or 5 months of our season. So that pretty much is depressing, when, you know, you can't get out and run around on a field, you know, with a team. But you know, what do you do? The other, well, I suppose one of the other good things is at least having Bill. I mean, I'm sure you've heard, Leah's heard about Bill the Kelpie.
Is he still king of the casa?
Yes, yeah. Well, he is. You know, this is year 2 of lockdown for him, of everyone working from home. So yeah, he's king of the house. 24/7 parenting, 24/7 being given all the attention that he needs. And you know, you know, I take him for a run of a morning. That's part of my exercise. Although this morning we walked out the door and it just began to pour with rain, and so basically he didn't get much, because he hates the rain, and so do I. But normally I take him for a run of the morning, and you know, we walk him of the night. So that's part of our part of keeping our mental health going, and being part of being active. But yeah, so my hobbies, and occasionally I'll you know, I'll read a bit of a book, but you know, mostly it's just I sit down and, you know, do some jewelry making.
Fiona, the last time we talked, you mentioned that you were kind of toying with the idea of selling your jewelry on a website. Have you made any headway with that?
Yes, I'm sort of still in the process of creating the website, and I don't know. I suppose I'm not in. It's hard, I suppose, with a bit of lockdown, to keep the enthusiasm going of getting it, and I don't know. Maybe I should find a coach or a mentor to help me sort of see through this setting up of some kind of small business, because it is hard in a way, because you've got to think, well, how much do I charge for what I'm about to sell, and you know, what is people prepared to pay for it, and how many pictures do I put up? And it's a bit daunting at the moment, but yeah, it's getting there. You know, it's a slow process, but yes, I will get there. And you know, I have a name for it. It's just, and I have a a logo. It's just a matter of putting it all together.
Right.
But yeah, look out for red dog beading.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that sounds exciting.
Yeah, I mean, Red Dog was the name of our previous Kelpie who started all this off. She would sit in the room with me and be my best critic and best in person encouraging her. So I sort of named it after her because she used to sit with me. And funnily enough, look who's walked into the room, Bill. But yes, he sits in the same chair and is encourages me to keep going.
Oh, that's wonderful that you have a friend in the process, because I think so many people have been lonely during lockdown. I just wanted to ask you, there's something that's been piquing my my interest ever since you mentioned it. What if you were to couple with somebody and actually write a book, a detective book, because you happen to know all this information? I mean,
I don't know.
It would be incredible.
I suppose it would, but I think I'd definitely have to get in with, what do they call them, ghostwriters or something, someone else
Right.
with who's got it. But yes, I mean, I probably got the ideas, but being able to put it all down would, it'd be interesting. It certainly, it'd have to be a bit of humor as well, I'm sure, but it would be another challenge that I could look at. Yeah. But there are a lot of those novels out there, but I'm sure I could put a twist on them.
A twist.
Well, I think there are a lot of writers that would actually need your expertise, to get their storyline right and to get detective stories right.
Look,
Great
collaboration is always good. Yeah.
Well, it's been wonderful chatting to you, Fiona. I got to know you recently. I know Leah's known you for a while, but it's been I'm from down south as well, although I'm from Southern Africa, Namibia. And so, so I always say, we're very similar, especially in our accents and all. But it's lovely to get to know you.
Yeah, look, it's always good talking to Leah. I mean, I think the last time I think we spoke at night, and I think Leah had her tea, and I was already into a little bit of wine, so we have a bit of a joke. But now it's sort of early morning. But look, I love talking with you ladies and talking about what I do, and in any job, whether it be just what I'm doing now or sitting doing my jewelry making, it's success is what you make of it. If you're prepared to work hard, look, listen, and learn, you'll be successful. And I mean, it depends what you define as success. Is it accolades? Is it self-fulfillment? Is it being happy in your job? I don't know. That's what success is. Being professional. I think, as I've said to Leah often, it's did I talk about the Nike principle, that just do it? Yeah. I think that's what I mentioned to Leah the last time. Just do it. Have a go at anything, and if you fail, you fail, but at least you've had a go, and well, I tried it. Yeah.
Well, it's so good to see you, Fiona. It's always such a pleasure chatting with you. It's so fun to catch up.
Well, I unfortunately, I won't be there in December in New York. International travel is just something that I just don't think will be on our radar anytime soon. Even interstate travel, at the moment is difficult. And I suppose until a lot more people, get vaccinated, there isn't international travel. I think from what I remember, or from what I've heard in the news, I think they may start opening up travel to LA and Japan, but I think it's going to be very, I suppose, conservative. You've got to have your vaccinations, you've got to prove, I suppose, a number of things. But so I certainly don't think I'll be seeing you anytime soon this year, which, you get that, all we can do is just go sometime maybe in the, next year or whatever.
Definitely.
but
Well, we
so-
certainly do hope to see you in person.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, look, it'd be great.
but-
So, well, it'll just depend, I suppose, how Stephanie's going to organise this year, and but yeah. But who knows? A couple of years when all this is settles down and we can catch a plane, who knows?
Well, thank you so much, Fiona, for joining us. Leah, it's been great to spend time in your company
Thank
again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you, ladies, and been a pleasure talking to everyone. So yeah, thank you.
And to all our listeners, how can they get hold of you, Fiona? What are your details?
Basically, I think I've got I'm on Gmail, so I think it's my Gmail. It'd be easy to say. It'd be F for Fiona, E for Elizabeth, D for Davis. So it's femdavis59@gmail.com.
And
I'm sure if they can. Sorry.
I think you also have a website on IAOTP. I think
it's and IAOTP, so we could do that as well.
IAOTP.com/Fiona Davis.
Yep. Yeah. Although that's probably not one I look at very often. So if they send a message, they'll go, she doesn't answer me very often. It's right. But look, my Gmail address it'll be the same. I'm happy to talk to anybody. Why not? The world is now such a small place with Gmail and Zoom and Teams on any of that communication. So we're not that far away.
Brilliant. Well, let's all keep in touch and
definitely
keep safe there.
We will, definitely. You too. You keep safe and hang on. It's evening over your way, so have a good night.
Yeah.
Oh, I certainly will. I'm in New York, so hopefully they'll let me into a restaurant.
Well, it'll be better. I mean, at least we're at least keeping the industries going with takeaways, so that's one of the best things. So yes.
Good.
Anyway, ladies, have a great day.
Bye.
Talk soon. Bye.
Lovely seeing you. Bye.
Yeah, it is. Bye.